Allow me to present to you my Minimised Nitron. Looks can be deceiving, it is full auto. For those who don't know, this is a flywheel disc shooting gun. The white one over here is the one with the motor. It's actually spinning. Okay, so at the back I can flick the switch on. When I put in an empty mag, you will see that reload warning light come on. And if we come over this side, we've got this fire selection switch, and we can see the pusher in there. So that's about all there is going on the outside. I'll tear it down and show how everything works on the inside. Start off with these screws here. That's actually part of the original battery tray. I used that as a convenient way to hold this back door on, and it's got some hooks which you'll see in a moment which hold the top in place there. It's very crammed in there. I underestimated how much space all the connectors would require. Okay, so that just dangles free, and the battery just slides out from the side there. I don't know exactly what this is. It's a 1.3 amp hour, but to give you a rough idea of the size of what will fit down the side there, about 35 by 20 by 75, 76. And for any historians out there, that is 1.3 inches by 0.8 by 3. So now that the back's off, you need to come to the front, take this front section off, just 2 screws holding it. There and there. It's there both for cosmetics and so you don't get anything caught in the mech up in here. Don't want to get caught in the flywheel. Okay, and next is everything else, the rest of the screws. Now the first thing you'll notice is that there are no wires holding this. That's because right down here I have this little header sockets, I guess, and that corresponds to some pins on this shell under there, so they just line up and plug in. This is what it looks like. Here is the aforementioned central locking motor in there, and a little rack and pinion along there that causes this to slide forwards and back. I initially cut this off thinking I wouldn't need the switch, then decided that I did need it, so I painstakingly glued that back on. That just gets pushed up when a dart comes up, yeah, so it knows it's a dart there. And then I, after programming all that in, decided that it wasn't actually working as I liked, so I abandoned that, and it's not even in use. It's still plugged in and everything. The program takes no notice of it. This is the back of the ultraviolet LED, of course. And this is the mag switch, so I am using that to sense when there's a mag in there just for the reload warning, and here is the infrared transmitter for that. I can tell that's the transmitter because it's clear, and on the other side the receiver is very dark blue because that is to filter out visible light. Now to take all this top assembly out, you actually don't need any screws, it just comes out like that. Plug there, that's for the pusher motor, and then this plug is for the flywheels, and then here's the plug for that switch, which isn't even in use. And that reveals the Arduino board there. So you can see that I bodged on this, there's your voltage regulator there. I thought I would get away with using the built-in voltage regulator on that board. Turns out that I burned it out. This is not actually the first time I've gone to shoot this video. I have some footage of how the first time ended. I just died. Oh shit, smoke coming out. So that wasn't great, and I didn't want to start the whole board again. I had to get another one printed and wait months. So I just wired this in, and it seems to be happy. Over here is a little H-bridge motor driver with its own heatsink in anticipation of it getting hot. And here is the MOSFET for the flywheel motor. Probably doesn't get hot enough to warrant the heatsink, but I put that on there anyway. I'd rather just chuck one on than test to figure out whether it needs it, or calculate. That'd be even worse. This of course is the back of the fire selection switch. There's not much else going on. Rev switch there, trigger switch there. I left this lock in. Technically the software also would not fire unless you were revving, but I see no harm in the redundancy of leaving the physical lock in, so you've got to pull that back before you can fire. So that just about covers this half of the shell. And that just leaves a closer look at the main mech itself. This is just a diode and resistors to power the UV LED, because I actually put it in as an afterthought, so there's nothing for that on the circuit board. And it's a 3-watt LED, so use chunky resistors there. An interesting thing to note is that I've left these inductors on the circuit board for the flywheel motor. I see no point in that, but they also had this spot for a flyback suppression diode here, but it was unpopulated. So I just populated it with a standard, it'll be a 1N4001, yes it is. And that just prevents, when you release the rev trigger, it prevents a big voltage spike from going back to everywhere else and causing mischief. It's good to include that when you're using electronics, especially sensitive microcontrollers. That is the original pusher. I just cut it off at the back of this. And I'll just take this apart so we can get a closer look at the pusher itself. So taking the top off here, we can see get a closer look at the pusher. So I had a bit of trouble with this. This will be the screw post from either a deploy or a barricade. So screw goes in the top. Turned out though that I don't really need it. That's pretty much the perfect size to fit in the hole in the top of this central locking motor here. That just goes straight over the top. I carved away a little bit, tried to glue in here. Now this plastic, I guess it might be nylon, I'm not sure what it is, but the plastic solvent welder that I have does not dissolve that. So I tried super glue and all sorts of adhesives, and it just kept sooner or later breaking off under the force. So I ended up drilling it up from the bottom and putting that screw through there, and have not had any issues since. It's in through there. Okay, it's back together. Put that on there. Now what you can't really tell from the top is that I actually shortened this to bring the flywheels closer back here because I was worried that there wasn't enough travel on this. This rubber bit was twice as wide and I cut it back to get as much travel out of that as I could. But I thought it wouldn't be enough, so that meant I had to bring the flywheels closer. That's actually been carved away, that's been carved away. Under here it's a bit more obvious. There was an extra rib like these, so I've taken about 10 mils off the length of that and just tucked that back, and there's a corner cut out of there to tuck that back, and that's why the front looks so hacked up, because this also had to be moved back. I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary because I did that right at the beginning. So it's quite possible that the extra bit of length I got out of this, I think I even cut out a bit on the inside as well. That might actually be enough, especially when it's moving fast, to reliably get the discs right up into the flywheels. But I didn't know that, so I played it safe. And that's about all there is to it. I will reassemble it and then get some firing demos happening. It's never gone on that easily. What's the catch? See, I don't play a lot of computer games, but when I do, it's generally a first-person shooter. One of the few that I have played is Metro 2033. That's actually the only one of its kind, really, except for Fallout New Vegas. So when I think of kind of post-apocalyptic, wrecked up appearance paint job, I think of that game. So that's kind of what I had in mind when making this, because this is, you know, like, it's kind of a fantasy weapon if you try and think of a realistic equivalent. That game's full of things, you know, like homemade things, stuff made out of scraps. So I was kind of going for that aesthetic. The main reason I left this mismatched like that is just laziness, but also I don't mind because I'll justify it by saying it was homemade. And that's where the stenciled on spray paint idea came from. I felt like, you know, it was just sort of stamped as an ownership stamp or something, or some very crude military marking. That's of course the H for halogen. So it's my, you know, my little tag there. And kind of funny that the one from that is completely illegible because I ended up peeling up all the paint that it was on. I think that's great. In 17. The 17 is just for 2017 because I watch a lot of forgotten weapons on YouTube, and many firearms, especially the older ones, were actually just named with a number that corresponded to the year they were made. I never realised, like the 1911 pistol, for example, because it was made or designed in 1911. I always thought that related to, I don't know, the cartridge or something. I don't know much about guns. Yeah, it's really hard to bundle these last things in. Some days something's going to press on something else and break it all. But for now, I get away with it. I might replace, I don't know, I could switch everything over to XT30s, which are the same plug but smaller. But I'll just have to do that for all the batteries and everything, and I'm not really ready for that. And this could be smaller, or at least solder the wires on at right angles so it's not so long here. Yeah, squish that over, squish everything over. Oh, and these were here because I rigged it up so it could have a Lipo Alarm, but then I discovered that actually I'd done tests and found out that the drain on the battery was negligible when that was all off. I split the negative for the balance leads and I put it out via the main power switch, here, so that when you turn that off it also disconnected the negative for the Lipo Alarm. And I thought it wouldn't drain the battery, but it turned out it actually did, so I must have made a mistake when I tested it. I must have had an oversight when I concluded that it would be fine. So I no longer design that into my Nerf guns. I could actually cut those off to save space. It's quite difficult to hook those in there and keep it all aligned. I think it's not happy. Right,